Jason Whitlock just don't get it. He just don't understand. Jason Whitlock just don't understand. And where's Will Smith? Listen. I'm glad Marc Lamont Hill told this dude what affirmative action was, because Jason Whitlock simply did not know what he was talking about in regards to affirmative action. Okay? Now, Jason Whitlock is under the impression that affirmative action places unqualified people in positions of authority, or places unqualified people in certain positions that they should not be in. That's not what affirmative action does. And I'm glad Marc Lamont Hill broke it down for him, because Jason Whitlock was just all over the place with it. Okay? I mean, everywhere. I mean, this dude gets on national TV and spews out lies. Okay? Like this.
Not only that, I'm sorry, because you got me on a tangent now. If I went to Harvard, I'd probably be some atheist, idiot, loser, and sitting around thinking that my whole life depends on some favor from some white person that thinks they're my God. I'll shut up now and let you respond.
The bigger flaw with the actual flaw with the argument, because I can see the other point was just my skepticism, is that in your case, you're saying you got a 2-3 at Ball State. You would not have excelled at Harvard because you had been overmatched at Harvard. It sounds like you might have been overmatched at Harvard. I don't disagree that if you put somebody who's overmatched in a school, they won't do well. That's not the argument. The argument has been that the people who have gotten into Harvard from affirmative action comprise that overmatched population. That an example of an overmatched student is the person who got into Harvard. That all these black people for the last few decades who have gotten into Harvard and Yale, etc., because of affirmative action, have actually been overmatched and they don't succeed. And my point is not that the people who didn't get into Harvard would also do well. There's plenty of dumbass people who wouldn't do well in Harvard, sure. But the point is the people who got in with the affirmative action program didn't fail. They were not overmatched, and they graduated at a rate of 99%. So if they all got good grades, graduated, and have a degree from Harvard, they are not analogous to you with a 2.3 from Ball State. They're simply not. Again, lots of people don't do well at Harvard. Lots of people don't do well in college. Lots of people don't deserve to be at Harvard, Columbia, Yale, or even Ball State, right? There's somebody at a community college that's like, damn, Jason is kicking ass over there at Ball State. I wish I was good enough, right? And so forth and so on, right? But at the end of the day, the whole point about the affirmative action thing is just to say that this idea that affirmative action is letting in unqualified people to do work for which they're overmatched, but there's no basis of what's the basis of, or what basis do you say that the people who got into Harvard weren't qualified and they were overmatched if they all graduated and did fine?
I'm not going to call names here, but I could. I've worked with them, and they're clowns. And many of them, they're so dependent on the benevolence, the gift giving, it being installed while unqualified. I've worked with many of them.
You mean white ones like that though, Jason?
Absolutely.
That's my point. It's not affirmative action. It's just some Harvard people are mediocre. Some of them are white. Some of them are black. I can't tell you. I'm a professor. I can't tell you how many PhDs from Harvard I meet that are mediocre. White men. I can't tell you how many PhDs from Yale are mediocre. Black men, right? You meet mediocre people in these institutions, and they use the institutions as a shield, right, for their lack of creativity, ingenuity, hard work, etc. I'm not saying that those places are magical. I'm simply saying that the mediocre people you've met from Harvard that are black are not mediocre because they're black or because they were let in wrongfully. I'm saying there's mediocre people in every place, and ain't nobody more mediocre. No one feels more mediocre than the person at Harvard who underachieves. Because one thing a person from Harvard gonna do, just like a vegan, is they're gonna let you know within 2 minutes that that's what they are. They're gonna work Harvard, just like vegans work veganism into the conversation within 2 minutes. Harvard people gonna mention that they went to Harvard. I can tell you right now, there's a hurricane, and they're gonna somehow find a way to bring Cambridge into it, because that's just what they do. It becomes a crutch. And I agree with you, but that's not just for black people. That's everybody. We got some presidents that came from Harvard and Yale. In fact, they all do. And some of them are quite mediocre. And some of the ones you think were mediocre probably went to Harvard and Yale.
And his base, they're just listening to him. They're not going to go search anything and look for. They're taking Jason Whitlock's word, And they tend to make their base believe them when they say things like, well, you know what, guy, this is just the bottom line, guy. This is just it. This is just the real thing. Look, let me give you all the rundown, when they just simply don't know what they're talking about. Okay? Now, I'm not a professor, okay? But I'm no goofy either, okay? I know how to research. I know how to look up things. I know how to do that. Now, again, looking at people like Jason Whitlock and others on national TV spewing the lie that affirmative action places unqualified people in positions that they are not, suited for. This is not just misleading, it's a blatant distortion of truth designed to deceive and manipulate their base. Okay? That's what it's for. To deceive and manipulate. Now, let me go a little bit further than what Marc Lamont Hill did, okay? Now, let's get something straight. Based upon my research, which I do well, affirmative action does not place unqualified individuals in position they do not deserve. It ensures that qualified individuals who have historically been overlooked due to systemic racism and discrimination are given the opportunities that they rightfully deserve. That's what affirmative action does, okay? Affirmative action does not put unqualified people in positions that they should not be in. Affirmative action places qualified people in positions that they should be in, but they were not in because they were overlooked for what? Racism. It's simple. Affirmative action, Mr. Whitlock, was established based upon my research, okay? Affirmative action was established by President John F. Kennedy in 1961 through Executive Order 10925, which mandated that government contractors take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. This was later expanded upon by President Lyndon B. Johnson with Executive Order 11246 in 1965, which enforced affirmative action for government contractors and federally assisted construction projects. Mr. Whitlock, okay? Since you just don't know what affirmative action is. But it's amazing that you sit up there and you tell you make your base think that affirmative action places unqualified people in certain positions when that's not what affirmative action does. In your base, they walk around, oh my God, if I saw a black guy flying a plane, I just wouldn't know what I just think. Is this affirmative action? Affirmative action is not going to place an unqualified person in the seat of a pilot. Affirmative action does not put a janitor in the place of a surgeon. Affirmative action is not going to put a CNA rep in the position of a brain surgeon, of a doctor. That's not what affirmative action does. Okay? Listen, affirmative action is about leveling the playing field. It's about recognizing that systemic racism has prevented qualified individuals from assessing the same opportunities as their white counterparts. The policy aimed to connect historical injustices, ensuring that qualified people from marginalized communities, particularly black folk, okay, get a fair shot. That's what affirmative action did. Okay? Now, a study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that black applicants with similar qualifications to their white counterparts were less likely to be called back for interviews due to racial bias. This stuff is simple. I don't understand what people like Jason Whitlock and others get on national TV and talk about. Because the data that they're kicking ain't real, it's not factual, and it's just simply not true. And they make their base think that something is something when it's not that. Now, according to the United States Department of Education, Black students often face significant barriers in accessing higher education, not because they are less qualified, Mr. Whitlock, but because the socio-economic factors linked to historical systemic racism played a part. Okay? One of the most pervasive myths is that affirmative action primarily benefits Black Americans, right? That's what everybody wants to think. You think about affirmative action, you think about Black folks because it gives white supremacists something to target Black people with. Oh, affirmative action. He got in because of affirmative action. He got in. It's affirmative action. Listen, the truth is far more nuanced. Data shows that the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action are actually white women. According to a 1995 report by the United States Department of Labor, white women have seen substantial employment gains thanks to, you guessed it, affirmative action. A more recent analysis from the Pew Research Center confirms that white women have benefited significantly from these policies, often more so than other demographic groups, especially Black folk. Now, people like Jason Whitlock and others who argue that affirmative action puts unqualified individuals in positions they don't deserve are misleading their audience on purpose, deliberately. They're doing so to deceive their audience, just to do so, just to attack Black folks. They ignore the systemic barriers that qualified Black candidates face, okay? And instead, they push a narrative that stokes division and resentment against Black folks. This falsehood perpetuates the idea that Black folks are undeserving, which is not only wrong, but it's harmful. But people like Jason Whitlock and others, this is the narrative that they want to push. Why? Because they just simply want to attack Black folks. It's nothing more to it. Affirmative action is about fairness and equality. That's what affirmative action was about. It's about ensuring that qualified individuals who have been historically discriminated against have the same opportunities as everyone else. It's about recognizing that talent and ability are not exclusive to one race or gender, but universal. Okay? So when you hear people like Jason Whitlock claim that affirmative action is about giving Black people an unfair advantage, etc., remember, that's not what it's about, and Jason Whitlock is simply lying to you. Don't be deceived by those who spread the misinformation. Educate yourself, get in your books, and read what affirmative action was about yourself. See why it was put in place. It was not put in place to place unqualified people in certain positions. Affirmative action was put in place to place qualified people in positions that they should have been placed in, but they were overlooked because they were Black. That's what affirmative action was for. If you see a pilot, if you see a Black pilot, that pilot is qualified to be there. If you see a Black doctor, that doctor is qualified to be there. Okay? You're not going to see a janitor performing a heart transplant because of affirmative action. It just don't make no sense. And these people need to be called out for their lies, man. And I'm sick of it. That's why I'm on this platform, all right? Now, the base of Jason Whitlock, they don't care if the information that Jason Whitlock is giving is incorrect, as long as it's going against Black folks, okay? I mean, hey, man, if we can get some giggles and some sniggles against Black people, you know, and make them look a certain way, I mean, I don't care about if the information Jason Whitlock is giving is wrong. As long as he's attacking Black folks, we're good. You know, this is what it is. This is simply what it is.